Happy New Year and welcome. This is the New Year's Eve Silver Stacker live stream. The clock just struck midnight and it's officially 2025 on the East Coast. Central Time Zone will be up next. That'll be coming up here in about 35 minutes. As the new year makes its way across the USA, we are going to reflect on how gold and silver performed this year. And we'll also dive into other topics as well. Tonight, I am joined by GG Bullion and the Silver Hermit. GG Bullion hand pours 3/9 fine silver in Michigan, and he also puts out some great content on YouTube and X. Oren Elbaz, also known as the Silver Hermit, is a sound money advocate, market analyst, and economist. Check out the links in the description to him and GG Bullion for YouTube and X. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to have both of you here with me tonight.
Good evening and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Glad to be here.
Happy New Year to you guys as well. So, tonight we're going to start out by reflecting on silver and gold's performance in 2024. Would either of you guys like to start with that, or would you like me to dive into that first?
Well, go ahead.
Yeah, you go first.
Okay, sounds great. On December 30th of 2023, silver's price was $23.79 per ounce, and right now it is at $28.89 per ounce. So we've had a little over of a $5 gain in the price for silver over the last year. So actually a pretty good performance for silver over the last year. The silver high for 2024 was about $34.84. So we got pretty close to 35, just a little shy of it. And its low was just above 22. That was early in the year at $22.08. Now, looking at its gold, its price 1 year ago was $2,062. Right now, it's sitting at $2,623. So it has also performed very well over the last year. The gold high in 2024 was about $2,788 per ounce, and its low was just under $2,000, also towards the beginning of the year, at about $1,991 per ounce. They have been doing pretty well. What would you guys say about their performance in 2024?
Well, I'll start. I want to say that, if you just look at the numbers, then the performance of gold and silver is pretty good. They've done pretty well compared to prior years, for instance, or the average year. But and yet we have this very low sentiment in the precious metal sphere, and just people feel so frustrated with the performance of silver. And I think it's mainly because they're comparing it to other asset classes. For instance, Bitcoin, which has set new all-time highs, and I don't know, has some crazy percentage gain this year, or even stocks that seem to be more upbeat. People focus on the fact that since the elections we've had, the price of gold and silver has been tamped down, as we say. And I think they should, look at the big picture and see that overall their performance is not that bad. And if you take into account the fact that there are very low risk assets, there's very little risk which is associated with holding physical gold and silver. If you take that into account, then their performance is pretty good.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I essentially agree with all of that. I would say because hopefully this is correct that since 365 and a quarter days ago or whatever, silver from that price is up 22%. Gold is up 27.4%, something like that. So, and gold has hit a pretty high of like 27.88 back in October. So I think they're doing well. I'm actually kind of happy to see the price of silver coming down a little bit. I know probably maybe newer people um, may get more frustrated at that until, it finally clicks about like what stacking is all about, I suppose. But for me, it's a win-win. Like the price of precious metals goes up. Okay, I guess my net worth goes up. Price of precious metals goes down. Okay, now it's cheaper to transfer. Like I get more mo good money for my dollars, you know. So it's really, I just view it as a win-win. And I'm stacking for the long term, aside from, what goes into my like poured bar business that I have to look a little bit more carefully at in the short term. But um, yeah, overall in the past year, done well. Pretty much about what I expected. I was surprised a little bit when silver went up to like 34 or whatever. Um, but then, it's kind of come down, which I'm glad. I went to the local coin shop the other day and picked up some stuff. So I'm happy to buy the dip as always. And going into this new year, hopefully I'm not rambling on too much, but going into this new year, I know I want to get more platinum. I do stack platinum, but it's a pretty small percentage of my stack. I do want to get definitely increase my percentage of gold and platinum because my stack is the vast, I would say more than 75% silver, dollar wise. So I want to diversify a little bit more, even though I think silver is a better play than gold, if that makes sense. Gold is more stable. I think platinum has a lot of opportunity as well. So I'm just adding that into the equation. But yeah, hopefully that's a decent answer to the question. For everybody watching, I am very over caffeinated right now, so I'm having a little bit of ADHD probably.
Well, that was a great answer, and I'm glad to hear that you were able to take advantage of the price slams that we've been experiencing recently and add a
Mm.
little to your stack.
Oh yeah.
So going forward, um, we could talk about what the future is looking like for gold and silver. And I just wanted to mention that I think silver has a lot of potential. Why? Because it is the most conductive metal. Silver has many applications in the modern age because of its use in solar for electric vehicles, as well as for smartphones, computers, and even military applications. The demand for silver is going to keep rising in the future, and the world is running out of it. And an example I'd like to give is in the solar panel industry. There was an estimate that by 2050, the solar panel production alone would use about 85 to 98% of the current global silver reserves. So, because it's so conductive, because it's so unique, at some point there's going to be a serious supply crunch for silver. And I just think that that's something people need to look at realistically. Of course, silver is on the commodities exchange, and they have about 408 paper ounces of silver for every 1 ounce of silver they allegedly have access to, physical silver. And at some point, I do believe that as we modernize, as all of these different electronic devices are developed, the demand for silver is going to overpower the paper market. And I do truly believe that. There's only a finite amount of silver out there, and at some point it will become apparent to anyone who's paying attention in the coming years that that is a fact and that this is a very limited resource. Now, with the price smackdowns that we've been seeing since the election, the prices are really good right now. And this isn't advice, but I'm just going to keep on stacking. I'm going to keep on getting while the getting is good. And by all means, I wouldn't consider selling any of my silver right now unless I absolutely had to for some reason. And I have a feeling in a few years, I'll be happy about that decision. So let me ask you guys, what do you guys see for silver going forward in 2025? And then maybe we could touch on gold for next year.
Yes. So I was just looking at the data from the Silver Institute earlier again. And We are at the fourth consecutive year of a physical deficit in silver. We've had a deficit of 215 million ounces of silver this year. And if you include ETPs, which is the exchange traded product, that grows to 265 million. And okay, if you include ETPs, then it's not 4 years of deficits. It's, as a matter of fact, it's 6 years if you include the investment in those products. And as a whole, if I take these years together, that's a cumulative deficit of over 1 billion ounces. So it's more than a year's supply. Now the question is, when are above ground inventories going to end? Or alternatively, when are the people in charge of those inventories or the people who own these inventories are going to realize that, hey, they're going to run out of silver and they better start keeping some for themselves in case we really do have a physical shortage, and they're not going to be able to supply or not going to want to supply the market anymore with cheap silver. Now, I was kind of under the impression throughout 2024, I was under the impression that we're going to see some quick run to a $50 an ounce. I thought that was a possibility. Because historically, if we look at resistance levels between 30 and $50, there's not a lot of resistance there because silver hasn't, if you look in terms of time during history, it hasn't spent a lot of time between 30 and $50 an ounce. And there's not a lot of people who bought silver above 30 or certainly close to 50. So I was thinking that if we do manage to maintain this, because there were points during 2024 that we had a bit of excitement regarding silver, and I was thinking that perhaps if this excitement is going to last for a bit longer, perhaps we can see a quick spike towards 50, and it didn't happen. So apparently there is resistance there, and you can speculate that it's a manipulation or not. It doesn't matter. It still means that there is resistance between 30 and 50, and it's going to be more difficult to get there than I thought. But it also means that we're creating a base, a more solid base around, I think, $28 an ounce, between 28 and 30. I think that the true floor is 28. If you look historically, in average out the price of silver, you will see that the true floor is 28, not 30. Although 30 is a round number and it has this psychological significance, 28, I think, is the true floor. If we do go below 28, I think that would be kind of regrettable. But I only see that happening in a scenario of a complete meltdown in the market, in which the stock market is falling and also Bitcoin is falling. And Bitcoin, we're going to mention Bitcoin a lot today, I think, because I think each and every time that gold and silver get some attention, Bitcoin comes along and steals the thunder. It's just a fact of life right now. And I don't think that gold and silver will be able to rally in a sustained fashion or reach their proper price until this debate between digital assets and physical assets will finally be determined. And no, I don't think, you have all sorts of analysts who think that gold and silver can live besides Bitcoin, and they can coexist. You can hold them all together. I don't think so. I always thought that they essentially they are enemies, that they are fighting over the same territory of what is considered to be sound money. And until this fight is determined, I don't think gold and silver will be able to find their true price.
Yeah.
I,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead,
yeah,
Brian.
go ahead.
Oh, no. I was just going to say, I got kind of lost for a second because doing some behind the scenes stuff on the live stream real quick. I was a bit distracted. Can you rephrase the original question again, Brian? I'm sorry.
Yeah, bear with me for just a moment here. So we're looking at um, silver's potential for 2025. What factors might be affecting it, um, and just kind of your thoughts on what 2025 might have in store for silver.
Okay, so in 2025, I basically, which this is this is going to be quite broad, but I basically see one of three things happening, and I'm not sure the likelihood of any of these. So, number one, which would be the ideal scenario, is that because I even let's say when the new administration in the U.S. comes in and on January 20th, whatever. Let's say somehow the new administration does pump the brakes on inflation and does stuff to help wages out. People are still, the average person in the US is really hurting bad. And I think I've noticed, because I'm always trying to sell silver to people I know in real life, at least on the ground here in Michigan. I have noticed just within the past couple months that, or really even in the past month and a half, that a lot more people are that are opening up to the idea of taking their dollars and putting it into silver or into gold. So that number one thing is mass amount of people start taking their money out of the dollar and putting it into the very good ones, silver, gold, uh, platinum, but especially silver is like the most easily accessible one. Um, because people are really feeling inflation hard. And if you have that kind of physical demand, it really doesn't take that much. If 5% of the US population, and that's just looking at one country on earth of, whatever, we have 350 million people, 5% of the workforce that does not currently start stacking, silver's going to over $100 an ounce, like within a couple months. So that's number one. Now, do I think that's going to happen? I don't know. I hope so. Number two is status quo, business as usual. And number three is actually, I'm not even going to add number three because I don't see it happening. So that's kind of my prediction. And I hope it'll probably end up being somewhere between number one and number two, those two options. Um, but I do see people are clamoring for, especially working class people, uh, are kind of and what we would call maybe like normies, I guess, or people that are watching this stream might call normies that are just going about their life. They're not worrying about economics or finance aside from like their own personal finances and being able to make ends meet, are actually starting to be more receptive to alternatives. At least I have noticed that in the Metro Detroit area. Um, so I think that's good. Um, it's just a matter of like, will that happen? And of course, if mass amounts of people start stacking silver, what is the reaction going to be from governments and large banking institutions? Because obviously they do not want that. So hopefully that answers the question decently. I maybe deviated a little bit there, but
Yes.
No, I think that was a great answer. If a lot of people rush into the market at once, it will definitely put a lot of pressure on the physical strain. Um, and I
mm,
do think that the reality that it's useful for industry, and that industry has been buying so much of it. We just had a record year for industrial purposes this year for silver. I really do think that it's going to shine through. In regards to gold for 2025, um, let me just see.
I
I'd
just
like
want to
to
say
mention,
real quick
uh-huh,
regarding gold.
yes.
Well, whenever I look at the supply and demand of gold, it appears that gold, there is nowhere near the same kind of tightness in the market and the same
Mm,
potential for a supply crunch as silver.
yeah, I mean,
Because due to
I,
the nature of gold, due to the fact that it is being hoarded and has been hoarded for centuries, for millennia, and it hasn't really stopped. People, if not in the US, then in other parts of the world, have been keeping gold as a monetary asset for ages. And central banks, of course, are holding large amounts of gold, whereas they don't hold any silver or very little. So gold is less prone to this situation of shortage because provided that the price rises enough, there will always be someone who will sell you gold. So I like gold. Of course, I like gold, but I don't see it as having this potential for a huge run up, the same as silver. We all know that silver is like it has all the hallmarks of an asset which is like radically undervalued and has the signs of being able to do something incredible which will strike people with absolute awe. And I think that behind the scenes there's this huge battle going on between the people who are managing this market and people like us in terms of bringing this reality to the awareness of the public, but also this fight for being able to settle every contract in the COMEX, being able to satisfy deliveries, finding somehow not letting this deficit or the potential shortage to become to come to the awareness of the public because they know that if the public becomes aware of it, then some FOMO is going to enter this market. Right now, we don't have any FOMO at all. The little that we've had has been drained away since the elections. We don't have any FOMO whatsoever. As a matter of fact, the technical picture for silver in particular, it looks absolutely abysmal. Like if I were just a technical analyst and I were to look at the price of silver, I would say, oh, this thing is going down. You need to be aware of the fundamental picture and to know what kind of a deficit we've had in the past 4 years and what kind of a deficit we're expecting to see in the future in order to even be bullish on silver. You need to balance the two together. And this is why right now I look at the technical picture and I'm saying, okay, I don't know. This doesn't look like something which is sustainable to me. I can try to rationalize it in a few ways. Well, first of all, there's certain optimism regarding the election of Donald Trump. I understand that. And people think that things are going to get better and perhaps they don't need metals and to protect themselves. Perhaps they're thinking that the inflation is going to go away. And also, I'm thinking that perhaps this could indicate weaker industrial demand. We all know that we've had tremendous industrial demand in the past few years, but we have these indications, these signs that we could be entering a recession during 2025. And the weakness in the metals could be this early indicator that there's less industrial demand. We don't see it in the numbers right now, but perhaps we are seeing it in the price. There's also the fact that, as I said earlier, people are enthusiastic about Bitcoin, about crypto in general. They're perhaps thinking that crypto is the way forward. I, of course, don't think so.
mm,
But as I said, Bitcoin is stealing gold and silver's thunder. So there's all sorts of way that I can try and rationalize the price. But if you are aware of the fundamentals, then if you look at the broader picture, then you think about the current technical picture as some kind of a false breakdown or a retest of older trend lines. And I'm kind of hoping for what we call horizontal support to hold. I think that, for instance, $28 is a very strong historical support line. I'm hoping that even in the case of a recession, if we do see a plunge in industrial demand, 28 is going to hold. Perhaps I'm keeping my fingers crossed.
Well, I'm hopeful that it will, and it wouldn't surprise me if you're right about that. Um, hey, I'm with you. I'm very concerned about the outlook for cryptos. I do think it's taken a lot of attention away from the metals. Um,
Yeah,
in
well,
regards, go
it's
ahead.
like the perfect thing. What is the is it the World Economic Forum? What is that? Is it Schwab? What's the guy's name? Klaus? Whatever, the
Klaus
you
Schwab.
eat the bugs guy. Yeah. Bit like crypto's the perfect example of like you will own nothing and be happy. Like it's all of this capital. Like when I look at the market caps for Bitcoin or just the entire crypto market is absolutely insane in the trillions of dollars. That money would be flowing into commodities.
Yeah.
Instead, it seems like if I want to go, tinfoil hat mode for a second, it's almost like the whole thing is rigged so that capital goes into literally nothing. And that being said, I do have some crypto, but I basically use it as gambling tokens. Yeah, it's nothing. It's like you quote unquote own a space on like a ledger, I guess. I, I don't want to go on a total anti-crypto tirade, but that is eating up a lot of capital that would normally be flowing into commodities. In respect to gold versus silver, or in like you were saying, gold has, I mean, if you look at an estimate of the market capitalization for gold, it's like somewhere around 12 trillion-ish. Silver's like 2 trillion-ish. And so it takes a lot more to move gold, and it is hoarded by central banks, governments, large banking institutions. So there's more, I guess, potential in silver for it to be able to move easily. Or I honestly, I think for let me think of how to phrase this. Sorry. For the good of mankind, and for people to engage in monetary activism, almost like silver is the go-to where average people can take the reins of power to an extent by simply getting silver and stacking. uh, Hopefully that makes sense. And I know you were saying like if you looked at it just from a technical perspective, like, oh, it doesn't look great, but there's so much more to commodities. Are real world things. They're not lines on a graph. Hopefully that
Yeah, right.
makes sense. And
That's what I keep trying to tell people. The huge difference in, if you're just speculating, then it's kind of easy to lose sight of it. That the difference between a cryptocurrency and a commodity is that a commodity has an end consumer, an end user
Mhm.
who needs it. Yes, what is the difference between crypto? The true difference, when you truly boil it down, what is the difference between crypto and commodities? You consume commodities because you need to. Yeah, you need to eat. You need a roof over your head. You need energy in order to warm your house in winter. You buy crypto because you want to. There's nothing which is forcing you to buy crypto. You only buy Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies because you want to, because you believe their price is going to go up in the future. You're going to be able to sell it. But there's no end user. There's no one who is dependent upon these cryptocurrencies and would die if he didn't have access to these cryptocurrencies. And I think that's my theory, that in good times, you can buy what you want, right? You have enough excess capital in order to buy what you want. In bad times, you buy what you need. Your set of priorities changes, and suddenly you don't have that excess capital. You have to settle for what you really need, and then you see commodities starting to shine because people focus on the basics. Capital also moves from the more speculative assets towards back towards the basics, and suddenly investors also realize that perhaps they need exposure to commodities. And in a way, I think that like you can forget about all the technicals and all the other considerations. Gold and silver will shine when the bubble in this market pops, finally pops, like completely pops. We had this, in 2020, we had this impression as though, we had this. It looked as though everything was coming back to normal. Some kind of sanity is returning to the market. This realization that we have a pandemic, then we have to. Perhaps take care of, go back to basics. But it was just an illusion. They pumped trillions of dollars back into the system, and the bubble went into new highs, into a hyperdrive, we can say. So if I truly try to think what is going to change this market for good, it's only the bursting of this bubble once and for all.
Yeah. I
I think that
really quick, just 2 points of stream housekeeping. Number one, Oren, could you look at the Zoom chat, like the chat inside of Zoom? And number two, I am keeping track of questions from the chat. So I don't know, because chat,
yeah,
asks some.
let's go
Um,
ahead and address the
you,
question from 39's fine.
or not,
Really
fine.
appreciate you putting that on there. 49's fine. My bad. Thank you. What is the average amount of silver someone should own? Now, I had heard a recommendation in regards to this in the past, and I think it might be good to kind of hedge it and have some gold and silver. But if you could imagine kind of a worst case scenario, um, you might want to have enough to cover what you think for you would be your basic expenses. So, food on the table, a roof over your head, these kind of raw essentials. You might want to have enough so that you think that you could cover those basic needs for 6 months. And that might be the best way for gold and silver to protect you in the case of a hyperinflation situation. And I thought that that was really good, and that was from Ron's basement. And I thought that that was a pretty good recommendation for people. Everyone has to decide what's best for them. I am very bullish on silver, um, and I think long term it has huge potential. What do you guys think? Or would you have a response to that? How much should the average person have in the form of silver or maybe gold as well? Just to throw that in there too.
Well, I guess I would say, I guess it depends how you define average person. But I would say it varies so much from situation to situation. Like people can be in vastly different financial situations or family situations or housing situations. There's a million variables there. So I would say I would say enough silver so that I think the 6 months of expenses is good to kind of cover you. I think that's not a bad recommendation, but I mean, I really have most of my money in precious metals at this point. Um, my answer would be as much as you feasibly can. Uh, that's just my own personal opinion. How much should the average person have? Well, I don't even think we should have fiat money really. So as much as possible, I guess would be my answer. I think it would be better for everyone overall if we switched over to using specie or hard money. Um, so I don't know if that technically answers the question, but as much as you're able to stack within reason, so you're not, don't go into debt to buy silver or anything like that. Try and have your house in order to some extent, but um, I think silver and gold are just in the long term. Having those are way better than having your money in dollars, which are backed by nothing except maybe the U.S. military. So at the barrel of a gun, essentially, when push comes to shove. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah. I always recommended people have 10% of their net worth, excluding a business or a house, of their 10% in physical gold and silver. And that was, always that very conservative recommendation. Now, I, of course, have more than that, but it's only because I decided to risk it. I decided that I believe in gold and silver to such an extent that I'm willing to take the risk of having a much higher exposure than that. But to the average person, I wouldn't recommend more than that. And in hindsight, this was a good recommendation because if people only, they were only in gold and silver and they didn't get exposure to the stock market, for instance, in the past decade, then they missed out because, as much as I think that the stock market is artificially inflated, and prices there are unjustified, but in hindsight, whoever was in tech stocks, for instance, now has a lot more capital to buy gold and silver, which are still, especially silver, still undervalued to a great extent. So I think there's also a psychological aspect to it. If you come to someone with a big ask of, hey, convert everything you have to physical gold and silver, then very few people are going to do that because it's just such an extreme thing to do. What you need to tell people is just buy little, just have a little. Then first, so at first they have this. That little gold and silver, that little physical gold and silver that they have, it acts as an insurance policy for the rest of their capital. But also, it allows them to test the water, to dip their fingers in the water and see if they like it or not. And usually, after they do own some gold and silver for a few years, and they are able to compare, especially gold, they're able to compare the performance of gold, for instance, to Bitcoin, that they see that gold is far less volatile. They see that it is on the very long term, its price is rising, and it has a steady return, and that usually it gives them some kind of comfort because it's physical and they can feel it, and it's not dependent upon your broker, or it's not dependent upon the performance of the stock market. It gives people some kind of a peace of mind, and they grow accustomed to it. And then perhaps after they have gold and silver for a few years, they can feel more comfortable holding more than 10%. But I think we as analysts should be, very conservative, very careful when we talk to other people, certainly people that we know, certainly friends and family. I would never ask them to take too much of a risk just because I believe in gold and silver to such an extent.
I think that that's a great response. And hey, everyone, if you like gold and silver, please do me a favor and hit the like button real quick. It could help the algorithm, help more people find the stream. And I am going to be doing a silver giveaway here in a little bit. If Worth waiting for 7777 would like to hang out. That is going to be coming right up. Everyone, we have an impromptu guest join us. He is a well-known figure in the silver community. This is Joshua Bingham. He, of course, is affiliated with Silver Wars, one of the founders of the Silver Degen Club. Tenacious member of the silver community who's always looking out for all of us and is always interested in seeing the fair market value of silver come to fruition. Joshua, welcome. It's great to have you on the stream with us.
Yeah, what an intro. Thanks, Brian. I'm
You
not
bet.
used to such grandiose intros. I really appreciate that. I'm just happy to be here, and I've been listening to you guys talk for it's almost been like an hour now since you guys started, and I'm actually glad to hear that I haven't missed the giveaway. I wanted to be there for that. So everyone that's listening from the Wall Street Silver community, hi, it's Illuminated Ape, and I'm glad that you're listening in, so you can probably win some silver tonight. But I just wanted to answer one quick question that you guys touched on back from, what are your prediction for silver for 2025? Because I got a really good prediction, and I'm going to try and make it happen. So, as the CEO of, or co-CEO with Conrad Dumb Money Media of Silver Wars, I don't know if you guys have checked out silverwars.com recently, but we just published a bombshell on the criticality of silver. And we're going to be spearheading a campaign to push the United States Geological Survey, which 2025 is the year for them to classify new materials as critical, as well as there's legislation going through Congress right now, although it's kind of on pause because of the changeover administration that's going to happen, as well as new politicians coming into Congress and whatnot. That's going to happen, and if that gets passed, then the DOE, the Department of Energy, is going to be having the power to classify silver as critical. And based on all the research that we're coming out with, and this is not just humbug, whoever's saying this. These are leading experts in the photovoltaic space, globalist, authoritative sources, their own sources, saying that we don't have enough silver for the green energy transition. So as much as I love advocating for people to stack silver, we don't really need to tell people out there to buy silver at this point. The people that have been stacking silver for forever, basically, ever since it was demonetized in the 60s, those people that have been holding on to what makes sense, common sense, are going to be the ones to, I think, profit in 2025 when we make silver critical. Because all the signs point towards this material being in a 5-year deficit, being the linchpin of the green energy transition, and also as as we've been coming out for war, it's a national security issue. We need to stockpile it. So that's my thing, my take on 2025, and I think that's what we can get done because it just makes sense.
It absolutely makes sense because it is a critical material, something that we
Yeah.
definitely need for the military. And I really hope that you guys are successful at getting it added to the list. And of course, I'll be supporting you guys in that. In regards to the outlook for gold, I just wanted to mention, of course, it did hit all-time highs this year. And even in the face of it hitting all-time highs, the central banks have been buying a lot of gold. And this is great for stackers because this is real demand. Not that stackers don't add to the demand, but this is a very high level of demand. And I'd also like to say it's not unusual for central banks to own gold. It is real money and it doesn't take up much space for the amount of value that it holds. What is unusual, though, is the pace of the gold buying that they've been engaging in. So it makes me wonder, why are they buying so much gold right now? What do you guys think? What might they see in the future that's causing them to buy so much gold right now?
Who wants to go first?
I'll touch base on that one. I think it's to obfuscate how important silver is. There's so much abundance of gold, and I was hearing Oren touch base on this in the industrial side. It's not useful. Well, it's not useful very much. Like, let's take copper. They can make schematic inks out of copper, but it's not as effective as silver for the fact that copper oxidizes, and the layer of oxidization is not conductive. However, silver it can tarnish, it can oxidize, but its layer of tarnish or oxidization is still conductive.
Mhm.
So it's a superior metal. So that's why it's used in all the high tech things. Where gold, it's basically anti-corrosive properties. So it's plated onto ththings so that it doesn't oxidize. So a very minimal use case. Also the same reasons why CPU pins are gold plated. It's for, so it doesn't oxidize. So it's not much used. And underneath all of that gold is a bunch more silver being used.
Mhm.
I'd like to push back on that just a bit. I do think that gold is an extremely useful substance, also in electronics, and specifically because it does not tarnish at all. So it has these specific use cases. The only reason why it's not being used more is because it's so darn expensive. If it was cheaper to use, I think there would be a lot more use cases for it. It's
It may
simply
be
because there is just so much more demand for it, monetary demand for it, that for most applications it is prohibitively expensive, and silver is more accessible. And by the way, I think that one day many of the applications in which
could
we do
switch.
see silver right
Mhm.
now, they won't be able to use silver. It's going to get too expensive, or they're going to have to cut down on the use of silver. For instance, you yourself have talked many times about how they use silver in the military, in all sorts of weapons. And when you hear the amount of silver that just gets blown away in all those rockets and bombs, it's just amazing. It's because it's so cheap that they can afford it. But if it was a little more expensive, then perhaps they would try to cut down on the amount that they're using.
That's what I would hope, right? That's the best case scenario, but it also is something that silver is very good in these extreme situations, extreme environmental situations where, so why the Navy chooses silver over lithium, for instance, is because if you interact lithium with water, it fizzles and explodes. You don't want that next to, things that are just floating in the ocean. So there's going to be some issues with you know using certain materials because it's just better in their environments, such as space is very similar to water, and they use silver to plate a lot of things. Increases signal on things that it's plated on, but they're also doing it because of the extreme temperature changes that's in space. So there's more than just batteries that are being blown up there, and through international law and trial and error of things coming back down, they have made it pretty much illegal for things that go up there to not burn up in the atmosphere when they do come down. So there's a limited time frame to things that go up to come down and be disintegrated through our atmosphere. So that's another way that we're egregiously wasting silver, where we're not so much in gold.
Yeah, well, I mean, silver and gold, and all the precious metals, silver, gold, and platinum all have very unique metallurgical properties. I mean, with silver, it's like the highest electrical conductivity, very good thermal conductivity. It's very malleable and ductile to the point where they can make pretty much paint it on circuit boards, I believe. Um,
It's also the most reflective. That means,
yeah.
so most people don't know that the mirrors in the Hubble telescope, for instance, are silver, or mostly derived to silver for the mirror,
Well,
because it's most reflective.
what and I've mentioned this, in videos, podcasts, many times. What I find is kind of strange is that, if you ask the average person, they know how much oil is used or how much iron is used and how important those things are to a modern society. But it seems like there's a knowledge gap with the average person when it comes to silver's use in industry and technology that makes it an essential commodity for a modern society to function, which
Well, think
is strange.
think about how it's represented to the mainstream, though. For the most part, I see the monetary reason. We have to have sound money being the prominent narrative that, is a reason why, it protects you from inflation, XYZ. Does it? I mean, yes, we've seen, increase in, our profits since silver squeeze started to now. But overall, I would think that, oh, lost my train of thought. I should not drink. That's my problem.
Hey, well, it is New Year's. Yeah, so
Yes,
that is no sweat, brother. So just want to give folks a heads up. This is what I'm going to be giving away. I think we do still have a couple people in here. I think maybe we've been a bit long-winded, but I do appreciate your patience. This is a commemorative US silver dollar. This is the Ellis Island one. And you're also going to get a 90% silver 1964 Kennedy half dollar. Now, bear with me for just a moment.
it's late, but those that tuned in this late, Pat, well, I mean, I'm pretty sure everyone's still awake because of New Year's, but those
Right.
that aren't able to stay up this late, they missed out, and the people that stuck around, well, they get free silver.
Right, absolutely. So you know what I think I'm going to go ahead and do is give these two away. And if we get some more folks in here, then I'll probably give the other two away as well, and they could just have a second chance at it. So anyone who is in the live stream, what I'd like you to do is pick out a number between 1 and 10 and just go ahead and type it right into the chat. Okay, I am just going to roll this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, 8. Looks like Caroline Clark was the closest to the number. So Caroline, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and send me an email to mountainbullionentertainment@gmail.com. The email address is linked in the description, and you just won this silver dollar as well as a 90% silver Kennedy half dollar. So I'm just going to put those to the side right here. These are going to be for Carolyn. I do appreciate you being here tonight. And depending on how many folks we get in here, we might give these away towards the end. So, right.
Congratulations.
Yes,
Congratulations.
Free money.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why everybody should subscribe and like and subscribe to all of our channels too, because but you literally get free money, dude. Like, do it.
Join the Wall Street Silver community, the Silver Degen Club, if you're a little bit more spicy.
Yeah, check out everybody on X and YouTube. I'll go ahead and add the Silver Wars information to the description here in a little bit. So if anyone's watching this later, please check out Illuminated Ape. And now we're going to go on to another topic.
Is it UFOs?
Today, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Is it UFOs, aliens?
We could throw that in the
steps?
mix because
Okay.
that would fit in with this actually.
Okay.
I
Go
don't know
ahead,
if I could
sorry.
talk on that one.
Today, we are constantly bombarded by so much information and propaganda. There are so many things to worry about and uncertain situations out there, with multiple wars going on and strange objects flying around in our skies. We also have inflation eroding our purchasing power. Some think it might have caused the US dollar to have lost 98% of its purchasing power. Which is very unsettling when you're sleeping at night knowing that the purchasing power of your dollars is just inflating away. Could inflation be affecting our sanity? And Oren, I'd like to start out with you on this one.
Yes, because it's like a theory that I've been, trying to develop over the past few months. I think it's no secret that we're living in crazy times. I mean, like we're seeing people do these really, really radical things. And I don't wanna, I don't wanna dive into examples because you all know what I'm talking about. We
Oh,
have all
yeah.
sorts of craziness. We have craziness in the political sphere, but also people are behaving strangely, and we're seeing things today that were uncommon in like past decades. Even if I look back to my childhood, people didn't behave this strangely as they do today. Now I try to remind myself that the things that the crazy clips that I see on X, most people don't behave this way. These are the most radical cases, but it seems to me that there are lots of them. And also, as I said, there's craziness in the political sphere. There's lots of vitriol, and I think that's also an indicator to the extent in which humanity is like, to my view, humanity is going crazy. I think that we're actually experiencing or seeing some kind of a collective insanity. Like humanity is losing it.
Mass
And,
hysteria.
and I always had this hunch that it had to do with inflation somehow. That inflation is driving people insane. And I know it sounds kind of far-fetched, but I was always trying to link the two. And now the obvious link was through, frustration. If you see other people, for instance, some guy is able to go to the bank and persuade the bank to loan him $1 billion to set up a business. And nobody, although in this environment of fiat currency, the bank can create any amount of dollars that it wishes. It can just snap its fingers and create $1 billion. But some people have the opportunity to get that money, and some don't. I, for instance, if I would go to the bank and ask them for such a sum, they would just kick me out. But other people. Take for instance Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor, although he produces nothing of value, he's just his company, MicroStrategy, is just investing in Bitcoin. It's just a holding company for Bitcoin, and yet he's able to. People are able to go buy Bitcoin themselves. Why do they need Michael Saylor for that then? But anyway, they just keep throwing money at him. Now, other people get frustrated because they don't get to enjoy that money. That's one thing. And also they see their salaries and their savings getting constantly eroded. Their purchasing power is constantly eroded, and they have difficulty maintaining their standard of living. I think it creates this degree of frustration that eventually, knowingly or unknowingly, is driving people crazy. And pushing them to do all sorts of things that they wouldn't normally do. For instance, if you're a reporter, I'm trying to link this with the fact that we're seeing so much corruption, both in the media, in the academia, in the judicial system. We're seeing so much corruption in all sorts of systems that were supposed to protect our democracy, and they are not functioning right now. So I was trying to link the two, and I was thinking that perhaps when someone sees their salary being eroded, then they're more inclined to corruption to try and gain money otherwise in order to try and sustain their standard of living. And they're more willing to take bribes and things like that. But still, I don't think this link is able to explain all the craziness that we've been seeing out there. And I'm like trying to take it along and pushing it along and trying to see what kind of connection there is between the two. And I was starting to ask myself just in the past few days, what is sanity? What does it mean to be sane? And I think that sanity is it's like a mechanism that we have as human beings, that we view other people in our vicinity around us, and we take cues from other people as to see if what we're doing is sane or not. If we're doing things which are very common, then we're probably going to get a good response from people around us. And if we're doing strange things, then perhaps we're going to get bad cues, as though people telling us not to do that. But you see that sometimes doing veering off what is normal is sometimes a good thing. If you think about humanity as a whole, think about Elon Musk, for instance, the way he's been able to revolutionize space travel with SpaceX. Like Elon Musk doesn't do what everyone else is doing, and that's a good thing in this specific case. So, and on the other hand, you have Michael Saylor, which I consider to be kind of crazy. He's on the other on the other side of the spectrum. If Elon Musk is taking resources and using them for productive means in order to revolutionize technologies, Michael Saylor is like taking capital and just burning it on something which is completely unproductive, which is called Bitcoin. And I know
Flushing
other
it down the
people.
toilet.
Yeah, that's my
I
view.
agree.
Other people won't agree with me. But if you don't like this example, I can give you a dozen other of people who took money and just burned it on complete nonsense. They do that all the time. So we have these people who are in the extreme. They are not normal, either in a good way or a bad way. And the people who are not normal are the people who are able to redefine what is sane. Do you see what I mean? Because the moment you have an example of an extreme person who does something new, imagine the first person who dyed their hair blue, right? They seemed crazy. It wasn't the same thing to do because they were the first. But once you have like 1,000 people who have dyed their hair blue, then it becomes within the spectrum of something that you can do. And then other people who were in the center may drift towards that direction. You see how the most extreme people, the people on the sides, they are able to redefine what is normal. If they get a good response from the rest of society, if they get some legitimacy. And what is legitimacy? What kind of legitimacy can they get? And the best way we can get legitimacy for what we're doing is through financial success. You see where I'm going with this?
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely.
because if you do something which is new, completely novel, and you make a bunch of money thanks to that, then it like reinforces you to go on doing that.
Yeah.
And okay, I think that under a sound money system, there is far less ability to do extreme things because credit is scarce. Then entrepreneurs like Elon Musk have a lot less capital to work with. So growth can be a lot slower and technological development can be a lot slower, but economy as a whole is a lot more stable.
Mhm.
But in a fiat money system, you are able to throw huge amounts of money at all sorts of people, sometimes without true justification. And I think that this allows people to drift more and more further from a connection to reality. I think it is, in a way, I think it's allowing crazy people to maintain their craziness, if you see what I mean, because they have enough funds to sustain themselves, even though they're doing unproductive things.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So I
especially.
hope that I'm trying to, I'm still trying to formalize this theory. The bottom line is that fiat currency allows people to drift further and further away from what is considered normal behavior. And the good side effect of it is that you're allowing extreme geniuses like Elon Musk to fulfill their dreams. But
No,
the
he's not an
bad side
extreme
effect,
genius.
yeah,
He's got
but the bad side
Asperger's,
effect
but
is
he's not a
that
genius.
you're also I'll let you respond in just a second. Just want to finish this sentence, but you're
Mm.
also allowing crazy people to realize their craziness. You're funding them. And this is why I'm starting to think that fiat currency is driving humanity crazy.
Yeah, and just before we start arguing about Elon Musk, I want to get my 2 cents in here about that. I see because I think that makes a lot of sense because if you look at history, um, as the fiat system has kind of gone along, like especially since let's say the creation of the Federal Reserve. What have we seen since then, especially throughout the 20th century? We've seen the rise of fascism, we've seen the rise of Marxist Leninism, the Russian Revolution, a lot of things that maybe would not have happened if there's so much credit everywhere and we had a more sound money system. And now if look at today, there's ideologies that are getting more traction. Social media may have something to do with that, whether it's hyper nationalism or this weird intersectional Marxism that we see, or quote unquote woke culture. Um, it allows people to, yeah, there's like a weird legitimacy that comes in there somewhere, even though like I look at, intersectional Marxism and it's like that's complete nonsense. But it's way more socially acceptable, I suppose, than 2 decades ago or something. Like it's an
That
interesting phenomenon.
That's a good point. And we do have a few more folks in here. I just want to give you a heads up. Caroline Clark already won the first silver dollar along with the 90% silver half dollar. At the end of the stream here, I am going to be giving away this silver dollar as well. So please hang tight. If anyone is new here, please hit that like button. Maybe we can get a few more folks in here. It would really help the algorithm. Um, and unfortunately, I won't be able to ship to Thailand. I know we do have a guest in here from Thailand, and I did want to address his question about 90% silver compared to 3/9 fine silver. Oftentimes, there's going to be a pretty good markup on the 90% silver. That's not always the case. Um, these commemorative silver dollars oftentimes are actually a pretty good deal as far as the 90% silver goes. Now, here in the States, there can be a big advantage to the 90% silver. For example, in the state of Utah, um, they don't tax any gold or silver coins that were minted in the United States. So that includes if you're selling them for profit later on. I think that the 90% silver coins are great to have for bartering, for potential bartering in the future. For folks outside of the country, it's possible that there might be some value and that they're not as common outside of the US. Although in general, I think you'll get the most bang for your buck with the 3/9 fine or 4/9 fine silver.
Yeah, right now, at least in my area, in the Metro Detroit area, I went to one of an LCS like a couple days ago, and I got some bullion and some 90%, but the prices on 90% that I'm seeing right now at local coin shops around me are very low. I got some like walking liberties and halves and mercury dimes. The math ended up being like 10 cents over spot per ounce of silver that's in it. Like it was super cheap.
Oh, well,
So
yeah, if you see those prices, I would strongly recommend scooping up
yeah.
the 90%.
But in general, I would say most of my stack is bullion. I am trying to increase the amount of 90% I have, especially if you're in the US. I think it's a very good thing to have. It's easily recognizable. Coin shops always want it. Generally, people generally want it, but there's also people that just prefer bullion. I kind of prefer bullion, like 3/9's fine or whatever, but I do like both. I would say get both, but I lean more heavily towards the fine silver.
And you did just make me think of something. I'm in the same position as you. I get exceptional prices on constitutional silver at my local coin shops. So I'm very lucky in regards to that. Another thing with the constitutional silver is it's unlikely to be faked when you compare it to the amount of fake maple leafs out there, for example. So that's just something to keep in mind in regards to that. And before we dive into states, I was going to see if Joshua wanted to say anything about keeping your sanity today.
And what
I,
and
I,
Elon
I know
Musk.
you got cut
Also
off.
tell
I
us what you
appreciate
think
your
about Elon
patience.
Musk.
Well, I just wanted to touch base and say that while I was listening to your talk about the inflation thing, I kept thinking that at least in regards to Elon Musk, that he's not the ones designing the rockets. In fact, he's getting a lot of grant money from the DoD and the government in order to fund this operation. So it's not even really his money doing it. I would say that if you wanted to know the caliber of person that Elon Musk and his design level is, look at the Cybertruck. If rockets were designed like the Cybertruck, they wouldn't even be able to go up.
It's not an attractive design.
All right. But here's another thing that I think most people don't know. So everyone gets really excited about Starlink and all of his satellites. but he's also putting up a way more satellites in space, partnering with the DoD, because the constellation network is very powerful. It basically allows for the Internet of Things to be everywhere at all times, where the linchpin is no longer a person's router. So that means that you have no privacy anywhere when this thing is fully operational. So I don't think, as people that respect privacy so much as silver stackers should be on board with such a thing.
Okay. Well, I was just giving Elon Musk as an example of a person who utilizes capital in at least a productive way, or trying to advance something which, has any practical use. But you can apply this principle in respect to, any
But is it
other
him?
entrepreneur which is
Is it
doing
him, or
something
is it the
productive.
government? I think it's the
Well,
government.
I wouldn't know. You probably know better than I. But I was talking in principle. If we look at the entire, and from day one, I didn't like crypto because it was unproductive. When we stack gold and silver, in a way, we are supporting an industry
Mhm.
which is getting these metals out of the ground, and with the intent that one day they will be used in some electronic circuit, and they will have a practical use. We're not just funding a virtual casino, which has no practical use. So I always had this. Yes, I want to take a good care of my finances. Of course, everyone wants to do well financially, but we also as responsible human beings, we need to think about humanity as a whole, and to think whether we are investing our money in something which is bringing benefit to humanity as a whole, or we're just wasting it on some unproductive endeavor. And I'm sad
I
to say
agree with
that
you.
there are very few people who even think about that. And I think it used to be the case that people used to think about what kind of companies they were investing in, not just in respect to what kind of if they're doing well or not, if their stock price is doing well or not, but whether they are doing good to society as a whole. I think people were more responsible with their finances back in the day, and this is something eventually we're going to have to return to. We're going to have to think about the moral aspects of our investments.
Well, in that case, I happily agree with you wholeheartedly, and there is an actual option. Everyone that currently holds silver, you are the above ground supply. We are the above ground supply that they need for the energy transition to go forward, as well as other industrial demands outside of photovoltaics. And they suspect that the above ground supply, us again, are going to sell our supply back into the market by 2050 so that they can get all this done, maybe. And this is ultimately translates into, we have the leverage. It doesn't really matter if more people right now buy silver. The fact that they already see us as the target, really, to shake down, like a mafia shakes down any sort of a racketeering thing. That should tell you all you need to know. That you
And
have the power to change the world right now based on just what you hold in your own possession.
yes, I agree with that. I'm curious how you think that will play out if there's this supply crunch and industry needs it, and we
So
there.
nationalization is probably on the table then, right?
So
But
right.
historically, since what happens in that scenario, a lot of mining CEOs are actually afraid of that scenario, but they really
Mm,
shouldn't be, because from a historic standpoint, when we confiscated silver and gold back
mm,
whenever, how many years ago, uh, mining stocks went up. So when that happens, I believe the play will be to transfer your wealth or whatever gains you had and put it into sourcing the next generation of silver that is going to be required. Or, and I really can't get into other ideas I have because I don't want to give, the deep state, or whoever you want to call it, ideas, or, to countermeasure now. I have
mm.
some ideas of things that we could do based on current laws and how to obfuscate. But otherwise, there's some plays there.
Yeah, well, I think there, at least in the United States, I think there's a pretty big overlap between people that stack silver and people that um, own small arms and also would not comply with confiscation. So I don't
Well,
know
they
how
also
well.
don't know you have it, right? So you don't
Yeah,
even
yeah,
have to escalate to that point.
that's true. But yeah, I mean, I don't really want to fight in a war, but
I feel like we're already in the war. We're in the Silver War,
yeah,
gentlemen.
it's all informational electronic warfare
It's
type stuff.
about
Yeah.
awareness. I think, based on, the entomology of the problem, it all goes back to people's ignorance. It's either ignorance of the laws that governments pass that ends up, shooting the people in the foot later, or the inflation that erodes us. But why is inflation persistent? Why is our politicians keep allowing this? It's because the constituents vote them in. It's
Mhm.
a matter of ignorance for the general population don't know what the real problems are.
Yeah, because and also even the elected officials don't have as much power, at
No,
least
they're just as
us,
retarded.
as they should. I mean, I'm not saying that our elected officials are good, but assuming we did have good people in there because of how many three-letter agencies and all this other middle
Right.
manager bureaucrat class that actually runs at everything, even if you did get good people in Congress.
We could just
Uh,
assume they have handlers, right? That are mostly influencing them over
yeah,
their constituents
well,
influencing them.
yeah, because I thought of this a lot when I ran for U.S. Senate in 2020 and, didn't win, unfortunately.
I would have voted if
But,
I knew.
well, yeah, I guess you'd have to live in Michigan
I would have
but anyway.
moved just to vote for
Yeah.
you.
Well, you should move. Come over here. And because I plan on running again in the future, but after I'm done with going back to school. Anyway, I'm going on this tangent. But I was
Well,
thinking about
and
that.
sorry to interject real quick, but you know
Hmm.
what I think would be amazing is if we got someone like you, who could go in there and present a bill to get silver pulled off of the commodities exchange. Because if we could get silver pulled off of the commodities exchange, the price would definitely increase a lot. And so who knows? Maybe at some point, maybe we could all make a meme coin and then use our profits from it, to hire a lawyer, who's familiar with constitutional law to write that, and then we could get, Leonard to present it to Congress for us.
Well, actually, I did learn of a specific law tonight, if you don't mind me sharing, that does affect silver.
Go on.
Uh, okay, so public law 96-41. It was enacted July 30th, 1979. This gives the power to the president to decide what materials are critical and to how much to stockpile. So that's another option that we can, take in 2025 is advocating Mr. Trump himself to classify critical silver as critical.
Heck
Yeah.
yeah, that is a great idea.
Yeah.
Well, before we dive into our final topic here, I'd just like to say it actually goes along well with this coin. Um, this, of course, is a We the People Constitution 200th anniversary silver dollar. These silver dollars are going to ship in their plastic containers. If you are in Canada, feel free and roll. I will ship to Canada. Unfortunately, I won't be shipping overseas. But if the gentleman from Thailand has a U.S. address, I'd be happy to ship it to him here in the United States.
Yeah. He said he lives in Michigan, so he should be good.
So he'll be good to go. Both of the metals are mentioned in Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution as money, and that's because they are real money. And the Coinage Act of 1792 pegged the gold to silver ratio at 15 to 1. If we were looking at that price ratio today, the price of silver would be about $174 an ounce. And I know that it seems crazy,
Too low.
right? I mean, it could go much higher. It is a very useful metal. They say that there's more patents on silver than any other metal. So
Heck
so
yeah.
Who knows
I
what we
learned
might
about
see?
dental use for it last night.
Yeah, man,
It cures
it is
cavities.
so useful. Oh, and you know what? Just to touch on a couple things real quick. I don't believe that there was silver confiscation, so I don't think that there is a precedent for that. Of course, there is
No,
precedence
it
for
happened 2 years after the gold one.
it did. Okay, well, thank you
Really?
for the heads up on that.
Yep.
Did
Really?
Yep. It
so
was
that would have
not as
been
well talked about, and like anything with silver, it's benign and no one cares or looks into it. I don't know what this is. It's weird, gentlemen. It's I learned this 2 nights ago. So you remember the silver certificates, the last year that they were enacted.
Yes.
Uh, so I don't know why they debated the bill for over 3 years and no one caught it, but silver certificates can be exchanged by foreign entities for our silver. And the last year, the silver certificates were enacted or allowed to exchange for silver and not fiat dollars. They allowed for bullion and not specifically minted coins to be in to exchange for that. So I find that a red flag.
That is interesting.
So
yeah,
I'm looking into that. I'm seeing where that rabbit hole goes. But I have so many rabbit holes I've been going down. It just I keep going from one to the next. So many in silver, but no one talks about it. And so, it's just me and, my research team that are looking into it.
yeah, I find that very interesting that I've never heard of Executive Order 6814 until you just mentioned it, and I
Yep.
looked at um
Yeah,
So
I was just looking at that too, Gigi. That's too funny. I was over here looking it up also, and just kind of looking at the details of it while you guys were chatting. So that's interesting.
so they
well,
never,
Not a lot of
changed that law. That's still enacted. I looked that up. Although they have augmented, and put things else into it, that
mm,
one's still real. So we got the USGS, we got the DOE, and then we got the president. We have three options now.
mm,
That's interesting. So I'm wondering if excluded the seizure of all. It says it excluded the seizure of all silver coins, whether foreign or domestic. So I guess maybe this was what they were thinking is they wanted precedent to go after like the big 1,000 and 100 ounce bars or something. I don't know, but that's really interesting. So thank you very much for bringing that up.
No
yeah,
problem. It should be looked into more. And if people ever find something that is not talked about and they found a huge discovery about silver, send it to me. IA@silverwars.com. Send me a tip. I will read. I can't promise that I will respond. I try to, but send me the tip. I'll at least read it.
So to avoid either of those, if you want to assume that precedents will be upheld, pre 1933 gold coins would not be eligible, and it looks like any silver coins. So that's very interesting.
yeah.
Hmm.
And also just to let people know that you can make like a little flower garden or grow tomatoes or whatever. You dig a hole and then you plant tomatoes, if you know what I mean.
That or art is exempt.
Hmm. Like all my bars are my handmade art.
Hmm.
Oh, could you imagine the goons that assuming they actually figured it would be make sense logistically to go around and try and collect up a bunch of stuff. They wouldn't know what the heck they were looking at,
Yeah,
especially if it was in like art form.
I feel
But
like local sheriffs in like half the counties in the country would just straight up refuse to do that.
oh,
I think
Mirrors.
absolutely. You get
my
one or two
theory
armored
says
cars
that,
knocked over, and nobody would want they would it would be dangerous.
Yeah,
But I think it probably would go the way that DMM had suggested one time that they would just make it illegal and just expect people to turn it in as opposed to trying to go around and collect
It's
it out.
possible. I mean, especially if they start pushing some sort of narrative that people that hold silver are economic terrorists.
yeah, I see that coming. Definitely.
yeah, I
Hmm.
see that on the horizon
But
as
I'll tell you, I think that any kind of confiscation nowadays, they'll go after the low-hanging fruit. They'll go after large depositories. Think about
Yes, that's a good
Sprott's
point.
ETF. I forget PSLV.
Yep.
They keep
So
their silver. Where is it kept? If to the best of my knowledge,
the
it
Royal
is
Bank of
kept.
Canada.
Exactly, exactly. They don't need to go far. They just declare that they confiscate the silver which belongs to PSLV, and that's a huge amount of silver, and that's just one legal battle for them. They don't have to go door to door and look for your
Well,
for your
that's definitely
mercury
where they're
dimes.
going to go first, but we at least know the Comex. They're going to find a bunch of paper.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. If they
I,
actually tried to get it from those exchanges, they'd realize, oh, this whole fractional reserve thing, oh shit, all the silver's gone. And then somebody in the comments said buybacks maybe. I bet they'd probably try that. Like whatever they need to do to jack the price up to 300 an ounce and try and get people to sell it to whatever agency or government authority or whoever's doing this. Um, I could see that
That's
happen as well.
That's their last resort.
Yeah.
My assumption is that the people in charge, they don't just want the silver. They also really hate us, the
Yes,
common
yes,
folk.
they do.
And they have this
Yeah.
disdain, and they don't want us to benefit
It's
from having that
classism.
silver. Yes, they don't want us to have wealth and power. That's because eventually it has to do with power. I think these
No one
wars.
wants to give up power when they have it, and unfortunately, power is maintained for a while. At least you can trace the entomology of the fix and whatnot in this market. I'm not going to get into it. That's a whole conversation I don't want to
Yes.
get into. But the old saying is, follow the money, right? But people have been following the fiats, and that's the problem. You got to follow what's really the money, which is silver. If you follow the
Hmm.
silver, you get to the
Hmm.
evil.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. The commodities, the things that are actually physically real that you can touch that are needed. Yeah.
right,
Unfortunately, it's weird
absolutely.
because it seems so common sense, but at the same time, everybody's or most, pretty much everybody's conditioned essentially from birth to be like the dollar or the euro or whatever
But
like
this is
that.
a new
That's the
phenomenon, right?
money.
But if you went back to before the advent
Hmm.
of TV, or maybe even before radio, when people actually read books to learn something, people realized that the whole world was run on monetary silver.
Hmm.
Yeah. What is amazing about fiat currency? It exists as a widespread phenomenon for only 100 years or so.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
thousands of years, silver was the money.
right. So why would you
What
look at
what is
fiat
a
when,
hundred years in human history? That's just a blink of an eye.
That's like
yep.
nothing.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And just to kick off our last subject here, we are going to consider if different various states that are working to make gold and silver legal tender within their states will help the metals, will help the bull run kind of get going again. Another thing that listening to you guys talk about confiscation that did cross my mind is the states like Texas and Wyoming that have state depositories. I wonder how those interactions would work out. Once the
Trust.
states kind of locked horns with the federal government, if the federal government did try to go after their state depositories, that could be really interesting.
Well,
Um,
it
so
boils
so
down to trust.
and I think that's a big part of the reason is they feel like they're doing what is responsible for the people who live in their state by giving them the option to have gold and silver to protect their wealth from the fiat system, and they're also willing to guard it within these depositories. So, since you're in Florida, what do you think about what's been going on with Florida?
I think it's great for the awareness of the problem, right? But in terms of satisfying a monetary system with silver, based on the supply deficit issue, based on its industrial usages, we just don't have enough. And if it gets adopted by one state, it probably get adopted by other states. That's usually how it works with legislation in states. They're all sort of coy and don't have courage, and they wait for a prominent state like New York or California or other big one to kind of do something first before they fall in line with it. That's usually how legislation works. So Florida taking the stance on it, that's a big deal. It's one of those kind of big states, so we could see a domino effect with that. However, I see it more of an advantage for gold because gold, like I said, just sits in the central banks and it's just waiting to be tapped. But I don't think it should be ever something that backs up something else. I think trust has been completely eroded in our public. There's too much corruption, and we need to actually hold the physical wealth in our own possession in every case until we can get to a more sane, rational place of government.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I would, and I'm attempting to work with some people to get something going in Michigan to change our laws, but really overall, to me, it comes down to just people as individuals almost sidestepping the state and just being like, okay, well, I'm gonna have gold backs or I'm gonna have silver coin or whatever. And
Definitely a short-term great mitigation, especially if the
yeah,
fiat keeps collapsing. But
yeah, and
long-term, from a historic significance, all the times that we had a monetary system based on silver, we had shortages. It's just not here or was
mhm,
there and everywhere. And when you have a shortage of a coin or a usage of monetary, you're slowing down e-commerce itself, or people can't purchase goods. So you're also creating a problem there.
yeah. Well, that's why gold seems to always outshine silver in
No
public
pun intended.
perception as Monday. Yeah, as money. Yeah. Because gold is hoarded in banks, it has far less industrial use.
And it
Yeah.
also has that intrinsic value that I don't know if it's based on it being, used as wealth for thousands of years, or if it was just born into this world with that intrinsic value. I don't know how that specific etymology is, but in and itself, gold is wealth. Is the if you type in wealth, you're more than likely to get gold pop up in your search results.
Yes,
Mm.
so something about gold will likely come up. So my understanding is that they're studying, how it could potentially be used at legal tender within the state of Florida, and so I think that that's something that they're kind of looking into. And also, what my understanding is that gold and silver bullion would not be characterized as personal property for taxation or regulatory purposes. That I just pulled this out of an article.
Well, that would
Um,
be good. And I think like Joshua, like I think you mentioned, I think the public awareness is really great because right now we have capital flight from the dollar into crypto in the orders of trillions of dollars from, random people, um,
And institutions.
and institutions. Yeah. And a lot of that is at least for retail investors is out of ignorance.
Well,
I
it's a
feel like.
derivative of the financial collapse of 2008. There's no, I mean, the
Mm,
pattern's there,
yeah.
collapse happens, Bitcoin emerges,
Yeah.
so after they created the situation where they had to fix the problem with all this QE, they knew that all this QE was inflating the system with all this dollars. Where did it go? Well, it went into crypto because if
Mm.
it went into anything real, then the system would implode.
Yeah, and it's really too bad because when you think about see, I guess this is one of my biggest issues with crypto. And I've been in crypto before, never too heavy. But let's just say you do time the market right and you're able to offload your crypto towards the top of a peak. Well, the bag holders are other citizens. It's the guy next
Yeah.
door, it's the mechanic, it's the waitress, whoever
It's
got suckered into
always a
buying.
zero sum game. Crypto is always a zero sum game. When you sell your Bitcoin, that means that someone else is buying it. When you're buying it, it means that someone else is getting your money. People sometimes don't realize that. They think that the exchange they used the exchange is getting their money. No, of course the exchange is only an intermediary. It's connecting between other people. And what is Bitcoin eventually is it's some kind of it's like a pyramid scheme, but it's different than a classic pyramid scheme because it doesn't have a specific top. It doesn't have one single entity which is controlling it. It's dispersed. It's like a pyramid without its head, and below, a few levels below, there's this group of early adopters. And
The whales.
when people buy Bitcoin, the only thing that they're doing is enriching the few first adopters. That's what they're doing eventually. Like when we are, buying gold and silver, eventually we are funding an entire industry which is employing millions of people across the world, including in very poor countries. So we're doing something which, it goes around because these millions of people are able to feed their families and consume, and they in turn they support other industries in their own country. So, it circulates. Whereas when people invest in crypto, they're just concentrating wealth in the hands of a few early adopters, and the crypto industry in itself doesn't employ a lot of people. Yeah, it's mainly computer servers running it. There's very few people who are actually, working in this industry. So,
Mm.
as I'm saying,
That
we it's very sad that the capital, which was supposed to find some kind of, which is looking for some kind of safe haven, eventually finds itself in the hands of a few. You can debate what exactly are their what's their purpose, what are their aims, but I don't want to see capital being concentrated in the hands of the few. I want it to be dispersed in the hands of the many.
that is a good point. Did you guys have any other thoughts in regards to the states?
I mean, it would be great to see more states adopt that. I mean, if we got like every state to do something similar, then maybe we could sidestep the feds. I mean, how the US works is a very interesting system that I don't have, that can be a stream all its own. But I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for sure.
I want to say, of course, I don't live in the US, so I don't know a lot about these laws or these specific laws, but I would say that this is probably counter to the position of the federal government. And the only reason why the federal government hasn't tried to oppose these laws, I'm guessing just because they don't want to, you know,
Draw attention.
uh, yeah, draw attention to this process. And if it ever
Mhm.
starts interfering or threatening the dollar, then you're going to see the showdown. You're going to see the end game in which you're going to have the fight between centralized power and the states. So I think some kind of showdown is down the line.
Yeah,
Well, let me
just to
just
take
say that the work that's being done in Florida is being spearheaded by the nonprofit Citizens Without Money. So, I'd say support their work if you support this kind of initiative being done.
I would just say to anybody listening this that does live in the US or any system that is similar to ours, get as many people as you can to at least write your legislatures or your representatives in your state house or state legislature, federal Congress, all of that. Request reply in writing by mail because they don't really care about emails. So they know you're somewhat serious. They get blown up enough if it's a tight district, they might advocate for it or at least vote one way or another, if you can get enough people to blow them up with letters. So just throwing that out there too.
Yep, they can't ignore you forever, and especially if you knock on their door.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, absolutely. They can't ignore that.
Nope, like it's
Okay,
like Ted Butler. He for his most of his career, he wrote the CFTC every time he caught them not doing their job, and he never got a reply.
yeah, no way.
You gotta, if you're gonna get to Rostin Benham, you're gonna probably have to, see him in person, get him at the Starbucks when he gets his coffee, and be like, "What the hell are you being paid for?"
He's being paid to look away, if I
Well,
have to
yeah,
guess.
we know, we
I'm
know that.
speculating.
speculating, of course. But I think if you confront them, anytime I've dealt with people that are liars, when you confront them with truth, they break down. So I just like to see, these people that are gaslighting the silver and situation be broken down with truth.
Mm, I would love to see that as well.
Well,
Yeah, same with
I've
me.
I've been waiting for the rebuttal from Jeffrey Christian for the Critical Silver article that we put out. I sent him a Christmas card. I said, Merry Christmas and Happy Critical New Year. And I still have not heard back from that man. I was so nice to send him a Christmas card. And I gave him a whole sourced article to say that silver is probably going to go to the moon one day. And you're wrong, Jeffrey. But I still have not heard that rebuttal. So I think that means I won. And I've beat Jeffrey Christian. It was very anticlimactic, and it's basically silence.
Sure, I'll count that as a win.
Yeah.
You know
You
what
know
I thought
what?
was interesting was he put that post on X about the first atomic bomb, and I decided to look. I think I might still have the only video on YouTube about that subject. Um, if anyone wants to check it out, it's in my videos.
Mhm.
And I had actually done that, as Joshua knows, to help pump up um, Drain the Mint. And
Yeah,
the Oppenheimer movie had come out recently, so it was a bit, I was hoping to catch some of that traffic and just bring some attention to Drain the Mint.
yeah,
And
it was a good idea, but stackers they didn't see the merit in it. So I went back to the drawing board and I found Critical Silver.
oh right. Well, and that was mostly just to call attention to the contest, which I thought was interesting. And then there was a couple other content creators who have larger audiences that ran with the same story, but they didn't look into it all that heavily. Um,
It was basically an awareness campaign to show like here's the government and here's their responsibility. They're supposed to be minting XYZ to demand, and they're not doing that. Why aren't they doing that? They still not doing that.
Right. That was what we were going for was the hope that if enough people bought Eagles, they would be forced to go buy them directly from the source that could affect the paper market. But anyway, it didn't end up working out.
No, now I'm going to go
Um,
for industry. I'm going to
but
push industry into realizing if they don't have silver, they're probably not going to be able to make their products soon, or at least into the future. They're
but
going to have to stockpile it before the government does, or the government's going to start the stockpiling, and then the industry is going to chase it.
right, exactly.
Yes,
But
and
that
if
gentleman
if
that you
if
beat had
American industries won't do that, then Chinese ones will.
They are already doing that.
oh, and of course,
Mhm.
Russia, their central bank's buying silver now. But that gentleman that you had beat had put that post on X, and so I responded to it. And I left a link to the video. And of course, I didn't hear back from him, but that was the only time I ever tried to reach out to him. Um, anyway,
Well,
you guys,
really
thank you
quick,
so much.
before we move on from this topic, I just wanted to say I think I would count it as a win that all of us have silver, that I have silver.
Big win.
And in my case, I guess the tools and know how to manufacture it, I suppose, as well. Um, so that's based. The
Yep. And
fact
in
that we have
25,
silver.
25, I did say, a couple months ago, we're going to, work with you to come out with a show to teach other people how to, basically forge their own silver in their home. And I still am committed to doing that with you in 2025.
Yeah, that would be cool. I just have an extremely busy schedule, but absolutely. Like we record at night or
hmm
something. But
Something, but people, it's so easy with
mhm.
super simple and tools. You were telling me about it. I feel like this is very important knowledge just to know. It gives people context of where things come from. I used to
Yeah.
love watching how it's made.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And you guys, thank you so much for your thoughts on that. And without further ado, let's do the final giveaway. So let's see how many people are left in the chat. Looks like we got 8 of them in here, if I'm seeing that right.
That's what it says on my end. 8 watching now. 8 people. Free money.
Okay, great. So everyone just pick out a number between 1 and 10 and type it directly into the chat.
I'm gonna enter a
and we'll see
number.
what we get here.
You can decide to count that or not, depending on what happens.
Oh, hello, Blaze. Thank you for joining us. So, Blaze, if you'd like to be involved in the giveaway, just pick out a number between 1 and 10 and type it directly into the chat. And I'm going to roll this dice here and we'll see who wins. Whichever guess is the closest will be the winner. And unfortunately, I can't split it.
Yeah,
I
two
looks like
people picked
Walter got
7.
7 first. So, David, if I could just get you to, oh,
Oh,
thank you, David. Thank you. And let's just give him a little bit longer here to type in if
yeah.
anyone else
That
would like to
coin I've been
join me.
staring at on your screen, Brian, the one that's a hexagram, what's on there? It's a little blurry. Is that
Let
uh,
me see if let me know if you can see that a little better.
a little bit better? Is that a wasp? Oh, no, that's a
It's a
dragon.
dragon.
Oh, it
Yeah.
looked like a wasp when it was blurred.
Yeah,
It
so
kind
this
of
is
looked like,
technically considered a 10-ounce bar,
It's a 10
but
ounce
man, it
bar.
is really cool.
That's beautiful. And
Thank
you
you.
know what? This is the 2024 was the year of the dragon in the Chinese lunar calendar. So,
Mhm.
um, we
That's
just
correct.
ended the dragon. I don't know where we're going into, but hopefully it's a better year.
I can't wait till the year of the goat.
I believe we're going into the year of the snake, and you can imagine
Yeah,
Oh, that's
silver
same.
right.
stackers are kind of like a snake up in the rafters, waiting to strike at the central bankers that have shorted silver, and we will
We're
be
gonna stick our
victorious.
fangs in them now.
Mhm.
Yes, we're gonna sink our fangs right into them. So
Our
here
venom
comes
is
the roll.
poisoned, or our venom is silver. I don't know what I
Yep.
just said. Yeah.
Yep.
It's touching this. I'm
Oh,
not sure if I should re-roll it.
Wait, let me look at it.
What's everyone think? I
They
had to
all,
move that coin a little to get it to lay flat.
that looks like
um,
a one.
that looks like a 1 to
Looks
me.
like a 1.
Yes, it was a little cocked. Okay, I think I'm just
So
gonna leave it.
I'm closest.
Let's see. Oh, well, you did a partial number.
Yeah, so I didn't technically follow the rule, so I don't count. So go with them. Don't give it to me. Go with them.
Yep. Okay.
Okay, so David, you won. Go ahead and shoot me an email to mountainbullionentertainment@gmail.com. It is in the description. And in the email, please just provide your username so I can see that as well as your physical address, and I will send these out to you. So Carolyn won this silver dollar as well as this 90% silver 1964 Kennedy half dollar. And David, you won the second one. This silver dollar is going to be yours along with this 90% silver Kennedy half dollar.
Very nice.
Congratulations, everyone.
Yes,
Yeah.
congratulations, folks. You guys, thank all of you for being here with me tonight. I really appreciate it. It's great to be part of this silver community.
Thanks for letting me slide in on impromptu. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, great having you.
Yeah.
Great having you on.
Well, I'll have to come in more often. This has been
Yeah,
fun.
definitely.
Yeah, that was very fun. I appreciate you reaching out to us. I'd like to thank everyone for watching tonight. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please check out the Silver Hermit and GG Bullion as well as Silver Wars. I'm going to leave links to their channels, to their
Silverwars.com.
yeah, check out silverwars.com, social profiles. If you are going out tonight, please drive safely. And I hope everyone out there has an amazing 2025. And thank you so much for watching.
Heck
Love
yeah.
you guys. Bye.